The Lenovo ThinkPad T14 feels a little bit out of date in 2026. Since it's not trying to be super sleek, it does not look necessarily elegant by any means, and it kind of represents what you would expect a classic ThinkPad to look like. And for this year, Lenovo doubled down on what that means, not just visually or when it comes to expected features like a healthy amount of ports, for example, but the 14-incher is one of the most repairable laptops you can get your hands on in 2026. Unfortunately, the overall pricing structure is in desperate need of repairs as well, but what else is new for this day and age when it comes to laptops? If the T14 is still the business laptop evergreen it ever was, and if the overall usability can keep up, well, let's talk about it. Just to get it out of the way right at the beginning, our T14 is the absolute base config you can get. And because of its price, it's probably not really interesting for a lot of potential users. But in typical ThinkPad fashion, you can spec this with whatever you might need, or what your company's laptop allowance is making possible. Our sample runs the Core Ultra 5 325 from Intel's Panther generation, and in our combined CPU rating, the 4 performance and 4 low power efficiency variants are running. Well, they are running, but it's clear right from the get-go that you won't get this config for its pure CPU grunt. In the ThinkPad, the SoC can consume up to 44 watts peak and 25 watts under sustained load, and thanks to the bigger than usual 14-inch chassis, temperatures and fan noise are pretty much a non-issue. Overall system performance doesn't look too bad though, despite just betting on 16 gigs of RAM. And speaking about RAM, the Intel model of the T14 is betting on the LPCAMM 2 standard, so in theory the system memory is user replaceable. If you can get those modules for a relatively decent price though, well, that's a very different question. You also get a single NVMe 2280 slot for storage and a 2240 variant for an optional 5G module. On the GPU side, our Core Ultra 5 is betting on the smallest Panther Lake built-in variant, and again, do not get your hopes up here, and our T14 is really rather spec to keep you online, write emails, hang out in Teams calls, and maybe go into a slightly larger Excel spec sheet. That said, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have an insane amount of options ranging from our config all the way up to Intel's faster Panther Lake X7 SoCs with up to 64 gigs of RAM, which turns the chunky 14-incher into a proper little workstation. Similarly, the entry-level display option is something you should definitely skip unless you simply do not care about colors or color accuracy for that matter. And if you are into any sort of eye candy, the much higher resolution 120Hz OLED with VRR capabilities will definitely give you a much better time once outside of those pesky Word documents and Excel sheets. I touched up on it briefly, but for a 14-inch, the T14 is pretty chunky by today's standards. But Lenovo is putting the extra space to good use, not only for cooling, but also when it comes to ports. And a pair of Thunderbolt 4s, HDMI 2.1, USB-A 3.2 Gen 2 on your left-hand side, and an additional USB-A, the headphone jack, and even an RJ45 on the right are pretty insane for a laptop with a still relatively small footprint. If you don't mind the overall pretty plain look of the ThinkPad, in general you will feel right at home with the overall styling. And in general there's absolutely nothing to complain about when it comes to material quality, and the T14 feels like it can indeed take a proper beating. I personally just wish the hinges would be a tad more stable. And speaking of overall ThinkPad qualities, you of course get the iconic track point and additional physical mouse buttons, if you are into these sort of things. And the mouse substitute in general offers reliable tracking and subtle premium feeling clicks. The keyboard is very good as well. I was just expecting a bit more travel, especially considering the thicker chassis. I'm also testing the Yoga Pro 7 right now, and I must admit I prefer that keyboard quite a bit more, since it offers even more tactility and a bit more depth. So yeah, please leave a sub since you do not want to miss our review for what may be the best portable gaming and creator hybrid in its class right now. Circling back to the T14 once again, in my intro I mentioned repairability, and Lenovo really doubled down on this, which is commendable, especially during a time when things get more and more integrated and components are glued and soldered in place, in pursuit of thinner chassis and sleeker designs. So for the T14 this means it's relatively easy to get inside, the battery pops out with the push of a button, and once again both the memory and storage are easily replaceable and upgradable. The keyboard also comes off easily enough, which is definitely something that will be appreciated by the IT departments all over the world when another laptop has fallen victim to a spilled espresso. Alright, that leaves us with battery life before we already wrap things up for today. And well, the slower Core Ultra 5 does not only net you benefits when it comes to heat and noise, but with slightly more than 18 hours in our standard Wi-Fi test and about 10 hours with the same test at max brightness, the T14 is a great mobile computing companion, and you should hardly have to rely on your charger throughout a normal workday. But that should already be it for today and for Lenovo's latest evergreen mainstream ThinkPad. Sure, our config does not offer a lot to write home about when it comes to overall performance figures or regarding its display configuration, but it definitely left us impressed when it comes to its underlying platform. So you do get a quality chassis, a ton of ports, class-leading inputs and repairability, and thanks to the sheer amount of choice when it comes to its configuration, you should be able to spec your individual ThinkPad T14 to match your personal computing requirements. But please let us know what you think about this one. Feel free to sound off below. Make sure to check out our written review on the website for more insights, and maybe have a look around the channel for more about tech and laptops. Thanks a ton for watching, folks. My name is Alex, you have been absolutely fantastic as always, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. Take care.